Okay, so we're recording.
Good to go.
Do we want to do anything better than just the traditional hello, good morning?
Define better. What's better?
I don't know. More enthusiastic, exciting. Actually, I think our openings tend to be fine. It's the closings that need work. We usually are just like, so okay, that's enough. Bye.
I've been cool with that. I don't know.
Okay, we'll just leave it as is then. In fact, I'm going to use this as our opening.
All right. Well, that works.
All right.
This is your cool opening you wanted.
Yeah. It was on this exciting episode. So how's it going?
It's going. What is it? The 29th of January. Yeah, things are okay.
Yeah.
Lots of fun little baby milestones happening, so that's cool in my personal life. Yeah, our daughter's starting to string multiple words together, making little phrases. Yeah, we're doing the dual language thing, so she's very obviously getting it. Like she knows how to say like sit down in both languages. So when she's talking to my wife, she says it in her language. When she's talking to me, she says it in my language.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Regardless of what language she's talked to in, she gets it. So I'm wondering. I don't know if that's like. Just if you're just learning English and you learn multiple ways to say something, right? Oh, it's cold. Oh, it's chilly, right?
Yeah.
But she definitely seems to like have one set of words that she says to me and one that she says to my wife. So,
well, I think it's easier when you're at a young age like that, because like the whole perception of what language is and stuff is still very abstract.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of contextualize stuff and realize that this works here, this works there.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward actually to see how that continues to evolve. Like as she does start making more phrases and more I don't know, kind of just linking more abstract concepts together into more complex phrases and such.
Yeah. It's interesting because we've thrown the occasional like words at our kid from other languages. Like I don't know, that I was trying to learn Japanese. So like we got him like Japanese blocks to play with, and so it'll have animals on it and like all the letters and numbers and stuff. So he can actually count to 10 in Japanese. And like he's at a point now where he understands counting. He can count to 20 in English and 10 in French as well. And he'll just like start railing off now and then. And like neither of us speak consistently anything other than English. So like he's learning words, but not necessarily like speaking grammar wise.
Right.
So, like, he has words that he prefers. Like, he always prefers to call an owl an ibu.
Probably easier to say or more fun. I don't know.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's interesting because now we've just moved to Montreal, so he's going to have to get thrown into learning more French now. Like, if you go to any of, like, the drop-in centers and stuff, like, Montreal is very bilingual. So you'll have kids that speak French and kids that speak English all in the same little play area. So the like instructors or whatever have to be using both languages.
Right. How what's your plan look like there now that you are in Montreal? I mean, I never know with you because you don't stay in one place very long. So if you were guaranteed to be in Montreal for 5 years, it would probably be an amazing opportunity to expose him to French and have him be brought up in French. But if you're just gonna maybe, right, who knows, but maybe move in 1 or 2. Well, I don't know what commitment you're gonna make.
I mean, we were kind of excited about coming to Quebec for that reason. Like my French is foul. Like I never put any investment into it.
It was the cool to fail course in high school. Right?
Sincerely, it was.
I don't know if
that's a Nova Scotia thing. or just a Canada thing in general outside of Quebec. It seems like Ontario and New Brunswick are pretty bilingual. But none of my friends appreciated it at all when we had to start taking it. And I don't think my teacher had a particularly good grasp on the language either. And then we moved to Truro Valley, if you will. And I was almost put back a grade because my French was so poor.
Wow, seriously?
I was almost put back into grade 5 simply because the teacher didn't think my French was good enough. So I kind of started paying more attention there because I didn't want to get put back a grade. And I kind of caught up to other people. But, there was the group of people that were interested in it, and then when they got into high school, they wanted to take French immersion. Or there were people that weren't interested in it and, took it till grade 9 and then stopped, which was the category I was in.
Yeah. I remember it was like one of those yardsticks people would use to kind of measure if you were a cool kid or not, like if you participated in French. I don't know. It was really bizarre. Like, I remember
we were very anti-learning culture.
We were. It was very much. I wonder if it continues to be, actually. I remember, we're both in the same boat, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We were those kids that got the 90s and did our thing. But French was my one mark that was like, seriously, like 51 or something, like just borderline passing all the way through.
Yeah.
And it brought my grades down. And then I think I stopped in grade 9, right? That was when you were allowed to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's funny about that is, I had influence from my parents too about it. My dad wasn't particularly interested in French, and so he actually had wanted to be a gym teacher, I believe. And the thing that kept him from going to school for that was that he had failed French class, and so he actually retook the French class trying to get his grades up, and he did worse the second year around. So he never nurtured my French interest either.
Right.
But yeah, it's so I just had no interest in it whatsoever. And now that I'm an adult, I've worked in visual effects and I've had the opportunity to kind of move around, and I've worked with people from France, and I found it kind of embarrassing that I haven't been able to have a conversation, because everyone's perception is that Canadians are bilingual. Which is not the case. So
I found even when you go to Western Canada and people find out you're from the East Coast, there's that idea there that everyone over there speaks French.
Yeah.
And it's especially, like, now being in the States, it's especially worse that I'm from Eastern Canada.
Yeah.
Like, people either have no idea what that even is, or they assume that you speak French, like, all the time. So
yeah, so it's there's been a slight embarrassment now that I've worked with people from France, and I don't know, I feel like because I've lived in the UK and America and Australia, there's this memory of me almost getting put back a grade, and so I feel like we should be nurturing lads to enjoy languages, because that's a big part of the world, and B, if we were to live somewhere else for the first 10 years of his life or something and then come back, like, he has to know French. So we felt like even if we were to live in Australia or something, we would be trying to teach him French so that if he's dropped into that situation, he can survive. So we were kind of embracing that, coming to Montreal and having a chance to force him to be more bilingual than I am.
So how has that changed your plans? Like, what does that mean you are, I guess, more committed to perhaps staying in Montreal for the time being, or some other French area if you did move?
I don't know. We had looked at it, and my wife's always been interested in going to France, and we were looking at it that you've got X numbers of years that you have available where you could get a working holiday visa and go over there without any sort of an employer sponsor.
It used to be until you were 30.
I think it's like 33 or something, 34. I'm not sure offhand, but we're closely approaching that date where if we wanted to do that, we've got to do it. So we kind of honestly accepted the relocation to Quebec, thinking that if nothing else, that could be like a buffer zone where we can come here, kind of get comfortable with French, and then if we're interested in doing that, go over there and be thrown into somewhere where English isn't an option.
Right, but it's all or nothing. Like, it would have to be your whole family.
Yeah.
In some little town somewhere or something, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought of that as an option when we came here, and honestly, we've only been here less than a month right now, but we really like Montreal. So I don't know. It's too early to make any sort of exit strategy right now, but I mean, we've certainly got the option of staying here for, at the moment, as long as we want. So, I am abandoning Japanese for now, just because there's so many hours in a day.
Yep.
And so I think it makes more sense for me to be putting effort into learning French right now than it does Japanese. So, it's disappointing to give up on an interest that you have, but that's what it comes down to. There's only so many hours in a day.
Oh man!
And something like Japanese takes years, right?
Yeah. I have this constant thing where I'm like trying to make these schedules for myself, and it's just like there's just not enough awake time to do everything I want to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things are kind of similar to yourself, things I've started in a sense that I don't want to now just abandon.
Yeah.
And it's you either go with the wide and shallow or deep dive into just a few, and it's really hard for me. I really just can't wait to retire and like have all this time to do all these things. But then I'll be broken and tired.
Or you'll have even more interests, and it'll be even more impossible.
Gather interest through a lifetime.
I mean, yeah, I've told you a few times how I have like this to-do list that I'm constantly like trying to plan projects and whatnot into, and I was actually pretty close on target last year. Like I came up with a bunch of goals, and I was trying to work towards those, and I was trying to be realistic about what can I do in the time that I've got in this year, and I think the only thing that I didn't do that I was planning on doing was A, finishing writing a will, and B, playing Rocket Birds in Japanese. Those were like the only two out of like everything I tried to accomplish last year that I just, by the end of the year, I just didn't have time to finish them.
Right. Well, I mean, so think of how you feel though. Like you're crossing things off a list.
Yeah.
Like where for me, it's more like just generic things.
Yeah.
Like get better at this or do that.
Yeah.
And it's a smaller list of say 10 things. So
yeah.
It just goes in circles.
Not
meaning to sit here and gripe. But.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that by having this targeted to-do list, I'm able to both feel happy that I accomplished a lot of things, but also feel more depressed and realistic about the goals that I have for the future, and like, getting them done just isn't realistic.
Yeah.
Unless I drop things like Japanese off my to-do list.
Right. Right. I can say for myself, I did find Japanese to be an enormous commitment to get to a level where I wanted to be. And now I don't know. I'm just done with languages. Like a while ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, I remember I was considering a move to Montreal. Of all places, it's weird to think now, but at the time I just became quite crazy about learning French, and I was like with there was like a France, I don't know, group or something in Vancouver, and I was part of that, and I was like studying every day, and it was really weird at the time. And I just remember like it just felt like after having spent so much time learning Japanese to just be back at that low level with another language as an older person. Like I was, I don't know, 29 or whatever, but I started the Japanese quite early, so yeah, it just, and I don't know, it was depressing to think it would be another however many years to get to a level that was where I was comfortable. I don't know, I just, like you say, so many hours in a day, I just want to use that time to do these other things. So the language is just such a time suck, right?
So I do have a little bit of perspective on that, though. And
Sure.
so you do have a slight foundation in French. So you're not starting completely from scratch. There is a foundation to build off of because we got some in grade school. And that's simple things like knowing the difference between how to say you or I or a group of people or whatever. Obviously, you still have to learn every fucking gender of every inanimate object in the world.
Yeah. Brutal.
But secondary to that, at least if you were to go to Montreal, I haven't needed to speak French a single time that I've been here in the past month.
How far have you ventured? Like, have you gone to Laval? Have you gone to the more French areas?
No, I haven't ventured very far out of Montreal itself yet at all. But most workplaces that you or I would get hired at will speak English. Almost everyone that's born here is raised bilingual. So if you go to a grocery store or a gas station or anything like that, they're going to speak English as well as French.
Right.
So the only time so far that I've kind of needed it, I parked my rental car at a friend's house overnight because I had to be at our apartment at 7 a.m. to get our internet hooked up. And so when I was trying to leave their house, my car got stuck in the ice, and so we had there was a random person that was passing by that was trying to help me get out of the ice, and he didn't know any English, but we were still able to talk to each other enough through pantomime and stuff that we were able to figure out what was going on and communicate. So and then my third point is just that there's I forget what organization did it, but there was a study of if English is your first language, how many hours do you need to spend to be fluent in Japanese or fluent in French or whatever? And from English to Japanese or Chinese languages is the biggest disparity in skills and the most time investment involved.
Yes, I have heard this.
So I forget exactly how many hours it was that they estimate you need to spend on average to study that and be fluent. But for French, I think it was only something like 400 hours, which isn't, that's not insignificant, but it's not insurmountable either.
Yeah, agree. I mean, kind of 2 points. One of them is a bit redundant with another of yours maybe, but I mean, if you've learned an Asian language and then you go back and look at French compared to English, they're like the same language. Yeah. Which I look at, say, Spanish and French, and those, to me, just looking at sentences written on pamphlets and stuff, they look the same. Yeah. They're so similar. Versus English, which is somewhat different than the two of them, but in the same family, blah, blah, blah. So there's enough similarities, though, to the point where when I was learning French, I was constantly surprised. Yeah. Of course, I can't think of an example, of course. But there's
There's
almost
a lot of
idiomatic phrases in English that you can translate as is into French using the same words. That would never work into a completely unrelated Asian language, right? It just doesn't work, right? Say fall in love. Yeah. In another language, you wouldn't necessarily say, fall down into love, whereas that kind of phrase just happens to be the same across this family of languages. Yeah. And the other thing I think is important is, especially being in Canada, where you just have French written down on everything, right? There's French on your cereal boxes and stuff, which is always important to me because I learned better when the language felt real. Yeah. So if I'm studying Japanese in Truro, it's not around anywhere. Yeah. Right? It feels like I'm memorizing Klingon or something. It's not something that feels real until I see it applied and I feel it, So French you'd never have that problem doing French in Canada. Yeah, and that's definitely been a hard thing for me because I can buy Japanese stuff off the internet, but there's no practical use for it in my life. Indeed. Well, French is increasingly so for myself as well, especially coming to the States where I lose that exposure that I just would naturally have gotten. Yeah. And there's no French speakers around me that I'm aware of, I'm sure.
Yeah,
here and
Japanese
there,
is
but
more relevant for you with a wife and kid and family. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't be afraid to continue looking at Montreal at least as an option, because like I said, I have only been here a month, but I haven't required French at all. So even if that is a barrier of entry for you, it shouldn't be.
It's not for me. I know Kie is kind of meh about it. It's more for her that it's a barrier of entry. I would say if I was to go to a non-English speaking area and it's not like Japan or something, definitely the idea of a French speaking area is the least intimidating. Yeah,
I'd be more hesitant to go to a more rural area, but as a programmer or a game developer or whatever, that's not really an option anyway, unless you're going to go indie.
Well, you at one point had talked to me about living in some cabin in the woods of France or something. Yeah, I couldn't tell if you were serious. It was quite a departure from previous things you've been saying, but I've learned to adjust to your changing attitudes. So.
Yeah, the thing is that I'm not afraid to talk about whatever random thought is in my head. And so those thoughts could be extremely unlikely to ever happen, but I'm still willing to consider them as a possibility.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that goes back to what I was saying though about the working holiday visa, right? It's like if we were to do that, I would be interested in taking some time off and just working on a personal project. And if I'm not going to be earning an income, it makes sense to go somewhere that has an extremely low cost of living.
Yep. That's fair.
So a rural area would make sense in that situation, and it would be harder for me, but if the only time you need to speak French is to go to a grocery store and say, I would like an apple, which you don't even need to say because you just pick up the item yourself and then bring it to the cashier and you just say thanks or credit card or no bag. If you're not having conversations with people, you don't need to be fluent in the language.
That would start to, I think, get to you over time though, wouldn't it? Or maybe you don't need it, especially if it's just a year.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm introverted enough that I could get by in a short time frame with it. If I were going somewhere for like the rest of my life, obviously I would need to be fluent in it. But if I'm going for a year to work on a personal project and not to be distracted by other stuff, maybe that would actually be better for me. I don't know.
Don't know till you try, I guess.
Yeah.
There's always Laval.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying Montreal so far. It's supposedly Toronto is the most multicultural place I've lived, but Montreal feels more culturally diverse.
Interesting.
And maybe it's because so many people are bilingual. Like you walk down the street and you hear those two different languages, and every now and then you hear people speaking like Hebrew or something too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think multiculturalism is kind of weird in that way, where it just probably as you've experienced like a few dominant cultures is going to feel more interesting than just this mosaic of people. Just because each culture that does have a bit of dominance there is that much more present in your life. Yeah, like sure, it's multicultural where I live, but it's not like there's not like 3 or 4 official groups that kind of have cultural events and they are aware of each other. It's more like little pockets of groups that kind of don't really interact so much. They're just there.
Yeah, and Vancouver feels very isolated culturally, in my opinion. There are a lot of white people and there are a lot of Asian people, and they don't really seem to like interacting with each other.
It's a sweeping statement, of course.
It is a sweeping statement, but like if you go to Craigslist, for example, that's not the cultural high point of the world. But if you go to Craigslist, there are tons and tons of people that just are furious about Asian people coming into BC and buying up property. And you look at newspaper articles and there's people complaining about like job postings that are in Chinese when we're in Canada and it should be English, or there's a lot of that. There's a lot of unhappiness, and so right now there's actually like a bit of a neo-Nazi movement starting up in BC, and I can understand, I can't understand it, but it doesn't surprise me because I can see that there's a lot of tension there right now.
Well, it's interesting coming from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Like in my own experience, the East Coast, I would never imply it's not racist there, but it's more of an ignorance, and it just feels like 50 years behind the rest of the world in a way, I guess. You know, it's just like if it was 1950 and you were somewhere in the States, like kind of what people might think of Asian people, where if it was like in the Midwest or something, you know, it's like not necessarily hatred, but maybe a general dismissiveness and a general, you know, lots of assumptions being made, kind of, in ignorance. But in Vancouver, my experience was very like, you know, I would say, of course, there's significantly less ignorance, but a lot more, I guess, like abrasiveness between groups was very much my experience. I mean, I literally, in the 4 years I lived there, saw like 4 or 5 very surprising, like, you know, incidents on the street that were racially charged that I'd never seen before ever in Vancouver, where people are telling me, oh, it's this wonderful multicultural area, everyone loves each other, but you go, and I certainly didn't get that feeling living there, I'll say that. And it felt very, I guess, divided as well, in the sense where like I'd have one friend group and then this other friend group, and the one friend group is quite, I guess, white. Well, yeah, about that. And then the other friend group was mostly Chinese, but international. Yeah.
Right.
So I just, it was weird to see not so much overlap, like just consistently as well, was my experience.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is that, like, while Vancouver felt very isolated in that way, like on Montreal, one thing that I find interesting is, like, you go onto the subreddit for Montreal, and there will be posts in English or French, and there will be responses in English or French.
To either.
It's like one person will speak French and someone will respond in English, and then they'll respond in French. And like you can tell that they're understanding each other. And I don't know, that seems very cool in a way to me. I don't know if maybe I'm interpreting it wrong and they're being stubborn about their languages or something, but I don't know that there's a lot more diverse population here. Like coming from Vancouver, where there's almost no black people, you immediately recognize, hey, there's black people here, and I like it.
Vancouver was a very I guess lopsided multiculturalism. Obviously, you go and it's like there's certain groups that don't have a presence and certain groups that are very much present compared to other places in Canada and so forth. But I don't know, Montreal, I don't have the same perspective as you, and I certainly don't have the experience after like a trip or two there. But it's the kind of place, at least I got the feeling it was the kind of place that I like. It's more like, it just feels more a traditional city.
Yeah, it does,
I guess.
It doesn't. It's definitely more spread out, and it feels larger to me. And
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I would say too, I wonder, like, I feel like Vancouver might be more growing pains too. Like if
shrinking pains kind of, right now.
Oh really? Well, young people fleeing pains.
Yeah.
Surrey growth pains. Well, I mean, my point is, if you look at Vancouver of like the 60s or 70s, which is going back really far, even the 80s, I guess, it's like it was a very different place demographically, right?
Yeah.
Like particularly the Chinese population has just grown exponentially in the last however long, right, 30 years. Whereas Montreal, if you went back to probably even like the 40s, 30s, 20s, it's probably still a lot of that, like half English, half French. Like those two groups have coexisted so long. There's probably you don't get that same, like, well, I don't know, but you probably have less of that, like, this new group is here and they're wrecking everything, oh my god, kind of backlash, if you will.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's commenting on things I'm not a master of, not an expert of. So.
I don't know. It's interesting. Like I guess on a extremely tangentially, I don't even know how to pronounce that word, tangentially related subject. I watched a movie called Silence last night.
Right.
Do you know anything about it?
I know it was what's his name? Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
His like pet project he wanted to make for years and years and years.
I didn't even know that much history about it. I knew it was him, and it takes place in Japan. So, without having seen any trailers or anything, that was what made me go see it.
I don't want to throw a negative spin on anything. Maybe you liked it, and that's great. I'm kind of bummed out on constant movies about like small groups of white people going to other culture and having their adventure there, kind of themes. So
well,
I don't know.
I think the idea was to bum you out. I'm not
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I think you might enjoy the movie. As someone who's into cinema, I think you might enjoy it.
Okay.
I feel like I can't recommend it to the average person.
Okay.
And I'm kind of conflicted myself as to what I thought about it.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's interesting because I've been like trying for a long time now to come up with an idea of like anti-heroes as like the main characters of an indie game and stuff, and like trying to figure out how to make that work. And I feel like he tried to make that work for this film, but then it kind of fell flat exactly for that reason.
Oh, really?
It's like a Braveheart type movie where I can't tell if I'm supposed to sympathize with the main characters or not, because it's I guess about Christian martyrdom in Japan.
Right.
And
is it in a way critical of that kind of missionary work stuff?
It doesn't. I don't know. I feel like it's more of like this is what happened than trying to put a spin on to whether or not it was a good thing.
Okay.
And so that's that's why I feel like as an emotional film it kind of falls flat, but it's still interesting to watch.
Interesting. So is it like these anti-heroes, that's the smaller Christian group
so it's a tale of Christianism or Christianity being banned. I don't keep up on my lingos. They're kind of the religion is banned.
Right.
The official religion is Buddhism, and Christianity is banned, and it's like one important mentor guy was in Japan and he's disappeared, so his two proteges go looking for him.
Right.
And they just, encounter what it's like to be a banned religion that they're trying to spread, and they kind of
prosecuted minority.
Yeah. So yeah, I like I said, I can't really tell if they're supposed to be viewed as heroes or not, because maybe it's just the fact that I'm not Christian that I don't see them as being heroes, but maybe Christians would be like, oh man, they're doing such the right thing by being there.
In that tone of voice even.
Yeah, exactly, with those exact words.
Well, having not seen the movie and generally having a preference for not getting too deeply into religious / political topics publicly, not a lot I can say. Other than that, it was, at the highest level, just when I did see that it was another story about, Westerners in one of those weird cultures, was kind of a meh for me. So I don't know if the movie's good. If there's other things that would draw me into it,
it's got mixed reviews. I think some of the cinematography is good. So I feel like since you enjoy film, you should give it a go on Netflix or something.
Cool. Isn't it like a 3-hour movie though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those can be hard.
They can be hard
to like fit into my schedule.
Yeah, which is why I'm not saying go to the theater.
Got it.
But yeah, someday or some week, give it a view. if your schedule allows it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and it gives me stuff to think about. It wasn't just like Last Samurai, where a white person goes into the country and is the hero.
Yeah. Right.
And I say that having enjoyed The Last Samurai. But, that's not the type of story it is.
Right. Yeah, it's like games for me. I mean, I just have a list already.
Yeah.
It would be competing for many spots.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a 36-minute conversation on not at all what we were intending.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah.
Shall we touch on some game-related things?
Yeah, sure.
I guess you've just completed a move and have not had a lot of time to game.
Yeah, I've played 0 video games the past week. So that's I guess why it's easier for me to get into a non-gaming conversation is I just haven't touched them. I mean, unless you consider the almost finished version of what we're developing at work. I've been playing that at work, but I can't talk about that.
Makes it a little hard to make it a topic, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's really weird to be having this conversation when last year it was going the other way the whole time.
Yeah.
Not a lot to say for me. Obviously, more Final Fantasy Tactics. I will say, it's kind of I like the game, but it's monotonous. I mean, here I am having played it for a few weeks, and there's nothing to say really. It's more of the same.
It doesn't. I remember that game always feeling like it wasn't really building up to anything.
Yeah, which is a big problem, actually. Like, I feel like the story just happens, you know what I mean? It's like you're given all these missions, and it's very clear that some missions are story missions, and some missions are just, here's some filler. And they feel very different. The filler missions are exactly that. They're easy, they're bland, you just go and do them, then it ends, and there's not much to even reflect on. And then the story missions actually have some challenge. I'd almost prefer all the missions, or like every single fight I be in have that level of challenge and interest. But it's always like, having played it, you'll remember this, I think, but it's like you'll have a mission like somebody is I don't know, ransacking the town, and I want you to be here at this time to stop them. And then you go, and it ends up that group that was causing all these problems is somehow related to the kind of I guess your main antagonist, and they did it for this reason and stuff. And it's like, every single time this is how the story is fed to me. It's like I'm just kind of doing something, and it happens to tie into this overarching story, which is I don't know, it's weird. I mean, I can only assume it was intentionally done that way, but it just feels aimless.
Yeah, I mean,
very much.
That's exactly why I preferred the original Final Fantasy Tactics. Like, it seemed like you were always going to the next city or whatever for a specific purpose.
And the story in that game is interesting.
Yeah.
And adult, and it is certainly a weak point of this game. I mean, I guess I'm again making an assumption a lot of this was intentional, but I assume it's kind of...
I think it's just supposed to be light and for kids.
Exactly. Right? Well, both of those are strong elements, but it's also, I mean, they wanted to do something different. They took Final Fantasy Tactics and said, how can we put a spin on this? And I think almost every single element they added that is a spin, so to speak, is a detriment to the game. Like, literally every single one, the judges, the fact it's kids instead of adults, just the way the class system works, etc., etc. But, I can kind of just shrug it off and for the most part enjoy the game. It's just long, and there's a lot of drudgery involved, is my take on it. But my goal for this year is to always have a portable game going, and just to sit down and play like a console game going. And I'm kind of breaking that in that right now I'm playing 2 portable games because I'm playing Gargoyle's Quest as well. Right. But I'm playing it on the Super Game Boy, so that's my sit down game.
Nice.
I was gonna play it on a regular Game Boy, but it's I actually, to hear me of all people saying this might be crazy, but it's just intolerable for me, honestly.
I didn't have a Super Game Boy, but I had the Game Boy Player on GameCube, and that was how I preferred to play games. Like, even when I first got my DS, like, I preferred to get older games on the GameCube and play it on a TV. Like it took me a very long time to be a convert to like PC gaming and stuff, because I liked the experience of sitting on a couch across the room from a TV.
Yeah, I still cherish that somewhat. I don't know. I go for fidelity with gaming, so that's why, like, say an emulated Super Nintendo game, it just doesn't feel right to me. Whereas, like, I can play, say, Civilization or whatever, all these indie games off Steam or whatever. I can play those on the computer, but it's weird for me to play a console game. I don't know. I can't really pin down why. Maybe it's some weird nostalgia, like I'm trying to recreate how I played these games growing up or something. I don't know. Probably there's an element of that, but it is very comforting for me anyway to just just play it in a more of a television with couch setting. It's more relaxing. You know, people can come in. It's more social. Yeah. Of course, with Super Game Boy, I mean, I did grow up playing, you know, the blocky old Game Boy, the first Game Boy, so it's not a recreation. It's more of a I guess tolerance thing. Yeah. But I actually got some time in on that recently. It's a very short game compared to Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which is God, I don't know, 100 hours or something probably. This one is maybe 5 or 6, so I'm at the second last level now. I will say great game. It spawned a series of 3 games, and they're all kind of similar in the way they play. They're all platformers. They have kind of the same mechanics and stuff. And I have played each one, not like to completion, but I'm really looking forward to the second and third one. I have to play everything in order, so that's why I'm playing the first one. It is a great game, but it's very, limited. I mean, it is on the Game Boy, and when you've already played 2 and 3, it feels like a step back in time. But I don't know. Good 5-hour experience, I guess. So just for sake of explaining, Tactics Advanced, if you played just the story, it's estimated at 48 hours, and if you're a completionist, it's expected to be 128. I'll probably land somewhere in between. I think I'll do the missions, but I don't know if there's like secrets to unlock and so forth. There are. I feel like. I remember with that game. With that game, I feel like as soon as I've beaten it, my motivation to play it will fall significantly. So right now, I'm planning to do everything, but if I get an end screen, I might just put it down. Yeah, I think we talked about that the last month about how now that we're so busy with kids and stuff that like while we used to be completionists as kids, it's just not a luxury we want to do anymore. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. But one downside to that, there was actually someone who posted on Reddit somewhat recently that they were trying to be a completionist with Tactics Advance, and there's one mission that they weren't able to do because they used an item that they had gotten in another mission that you need to start the last mission. I've heard that actually. If you don't do things in the right sequence, then that'll happen. You'll get stuck, unable to complete a mission. I would probably right then and there put the game down and play something else. So I'm still trying to. My wife and kid are on vacation right now, so I'm trying to decide this week whether I'm going to play a ton of video games or whether I'm going to try to finish up some tutorials that I'd started last year. Probably some combination of the two. So I'll probably play some more Dragon Age Origins. Rock on. Well, I don't think anything's going to change for me. I've been playing these 2 games. One bit of news that's great for me. I've actually got Kie playing Link to the Past with me. Nice. Andrew didn't care for that. Yeah. Fair. It's, of course, one of my favorites from times past. Yeah, mine too. It's been hard getting her to show any interest in games, so I mean if this ends up being more of a chore for her, it's unfortunate, but at least I'm it should be her kind of learning a bit about my hobby, so it's her playing and me I guess mentoring. So that's been interesting. I tried playing that on the Game Boy player on the GameCube. Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Oh, so you had the
the Four Swords version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried getting Andrea to play that a couple years back, and I think we put in like half an hour or so, and she just wasn't feeling it at all. So I think that sort of game just isn't for her. Like she likes stuff like Fez or a Scapegoat, where it's forgiving and kind of puzzly.
Right. Low commitment game, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair.
Anyway, I guess that about wraps it up for this exciting edition of the Vagabond Gamecast.
Time for one of those endings we're not very good at.
that was my professional ending. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I caught it. It felt a little better than usual, and I had to go and spoil it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, cheers to you, sir, and until next time.
Yeah. Catch you later, brother.